That window AC unit costs between $200 and $500 to buy. Then it costs you another $30 to $85 every single month to run, according to published energy cost comparisons between evaporative and compressor-based cooling. The U.S. air conditioner market hit $25 billion in 2025, and 88% of American homes have air conditioning, one of the highest rates on the planet. Here's what almost none of those 88% of households know. The same cooling effect you're paying hundreds of dollars a year to produce with a compressor, refrigerant, and a machine that draws up to 3,500 watts of electricity can be produced with a bucket, a fan, a wet cloth, and basic physics for about $6. Not a lesser version of cooling. The same underlying physical mechanism, the one that has cooled human beings for 4,500 years before anyone invented a compressor. Here is a very short history of how an entire society forgot something it had known for 4,500 years. Archaeological artifacts dating back to 2500 BC show ancient Egyptians hanging reeds or wet cloths in their doorways and windows. As the wind blew across the damp fabric, the air temperature entering their homes became markedly cooler. The ancient Romans diverted cold water from their aqueducts through pipes embedded in the walls of their homes, keeping temperatures down. In China during the Han Dynasty, craftsmen built a 3-meter wide rotary fan driven by water from fountains, adding evaporative cooling to the airflow. This knowledge was universal. For thousands of years, people understood intuitively that moving air across a wet surface drops its temperature. That was just basic physics. Then in 1902, Willis Carrier invented the mechanical air conditioner. And over the following 5 decades, the HVAC industry did something brilliant. They packaged that ancient physics inside a compressor, added refrigerant, added ductwork, added installation fees, and sold the entire assembly as the only credible solution to summer heat. The marketing that followed was methodical. By the 1970s and 1980s, staying cool in American culture had become synonymous with owning a machine, a specific, expensive, electricity-hungry machine with ongoing service contracts and replacement cycles. U.S. consumers replace roughly 3 million heating and cooling systems every single year. 3 million annually. For a physical process that requires water and airflow, that's not thermodynamics. That's marketing. The actual mechanism of cooling air requires just one physical law. When water changes from a liquid to a vapor, then it pulls heat energy directly from the surrounding air. The air gives up its heat, its temperature drops, and the water molecules carry that energy away as vapor. That's it. One law. No compressor required. Here is everything you need. Where to find it, and the exact physics behind why each piece works, is symptom 1. A box fan or any moving fan you already own, if you need one. A standard 20-inch box fan at Walmart runs about $18 to $22. Any brand. The mechanism matters, not the label. A box fan pushes air in a straight horizontal column, which is exactly what you need to force airflow through a wet surface. It consumes roughly 50 to 75 watts of electricity. Compare that to a central AC unit drawing 3,000 to 5,000 watts. That's up to a 98% difference in energy consumption for the same cooling goal, Edom 2. A 5-gallon plastic bucket. Home Depot sells the basic orange one for $3.50. Dollar Tree and Walmart carry similar sizes for $1 to $2. This is your water reservoir. The bucket keeps the water cold longer and provides the wicking source for your evaporative pad, item 3. Cotton cloths, a thin towel, or ideally, a cellulose cooling pad. Plain cotton washcloths from Walmart run about $1 for a 2-pack. They work. But if you want better performance, look for cellulose evaporative cooler pads sold at Home Depot or Amazon, typically $5 to $8 for a standard sheet. Cellulose pads are rigid, corrugated sheets designed to maximize surface area, typically achieving cooling efficiencies around 37% to 45%. More surface area means faster evaporation. Faster evaporation means more heat pulled from the air per minute. Here's the physics of why this works, stated plainly. Each gram of water that evaporates absorbs roughly 2,430 joules of energy at 30 degrees Celsius, a substantial amount of heat pulled directly from the air passing through. Then, your fan forces warm room air through the wet cloth or pad. The water on the surface of that cloth is continuously evaporating, and every molecule that evaporates takes a packet of heat energy with it. Then, the air that exits the other side of the wet surface is cooler because it literally surrendered its heat to power the phase change from liquid water to vapor. That is not a clever trick. That is thermodynamics. And thermodynamics doesn't care what the HVAC industry charges per hour for a service call. Optional 4th item, Ice. A bag of ice from a gas station or grocery store costs $200 to $3. Added to the water in the bucket, it lowers the water temperature, which slows the evaporation rate slightly, but lowers the temperature of the wet surface your fan is pushing air through. Net effect. Colder air output in the first hour of operation. Refillable frozen water bottles work the same way and cost nothing to cycle. Total material cost if you own a fan, under $6. If you need to buy everything including the fan, under $30. Here is the exact setup. Follow the sequence. The positioning decisions here are what separate a setup that works from one that doesn't. Step 1. Prepare your bucket. Fill your 5-gallon bucket about halfway with cold tap water. If you're using ice, then add it now and let the water temperature drop for 5 minutes before continuing. If you're using frozen water bottles, place them standing upright in the water. Cold water is your reservoir. It keeps the cloth or pad cool longer. Step 2. Then soak your pad or cloth. If using cotton cloths, soak them fully in the cold water for 60 seconds, then wring them out to damp, not dripping. You want the fabric saturated but not streaming water onto your floor. If using cellulose pads, then submerge briefly, let the excess drain for 30 seconds, then handle them by the edges. Step 3. Set up the evaporative surface. Here is the insider rule that determines whether this setup works or becomes just a wet towel in a room. Then place the fan so it pulls warm air through the wet surface rather than blowing into it from behind. This is the critical direction. The fan's intake side, the back of the blades, faces away from you. The wet cloth hangs or sits directly in front of the intake between the fan and the source of warm air. The fan draws warm air through the wet surface. That contact is where the heat exchange happens. Air through wet cloth, not air past wet cloth. The easiest way to set this up with a box fan, drape your wet cloth across the intake grill on the back of the fan. The weight of the cloth holds it. The fan draws air through it continuously. Each cubic foot of air that passes through the wet surface surrenders heat to evaporation and exits cooler into your room. Step 4. Position yourself and the airflow correctly. Plie your cooler near an open window or door. This allows the unit to pull in fresh, dry air from outside rather than recirculating the increasingly humid air from inside the room. That one detail dramatically increases effectiveness. Fresh, dry air has more capacity to absorb moisture, which means faster evaporation, which means more heat extracted per minute. Sit within 4 to 6 feet of the output side of the fan. This is a personal cooling system. It is highly effective at a personal scale. It is not a central air replacement for a 2,000 square foot house. Set that expectation correctly and you will not be disappointed. Step 5. Maintain the moisture. Every 20 to 30 minutes, re-wet the cloth or pad. Pull it off the fan, dunk it in your bucket of cold water, wring it lightly, replace it. This takes 15 seconds. If you added ice to the bucket, replenish it as it melts. The results are not gradual. You will feel the temperature difference in the air reaching you within the first 60 to 90 seconds of the fan running through a wet surface. How long does it last? As long as you maintain the wet surface and the water is cold. Effective for 30 to 60 minutes per ice charge if using ice. Indefinitely if using tap water alone in drier climates where evaporation is faster. You might be wondering, is this actually comparable to real air conditioning, or does it just feel that way? Here's what publicly available data says. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, a typical evaporative cooler uses only 15 to 35% of the electricity consumed by a central air conditioning system. In dry climates with humidity below 50%, an evaporative cooler can cool your home for 75 to 80% less electricity than air conditioning, saving $600 to $1,000 or more per cooling season. The American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy published a study on evaporative cooling in the Southwest. Researchers found evaporative coolers save on the order of 3,200 kilowatt hours per year compared to conventional AC systems, with net dollar savings of $254 per year for homeowners who switch. Now, what about humidity? This is the honest limitation that belongs in this video. Evaporative cooling is most effective when relative humidity is low. Dry air has a much greater capacity to absorb moisture, so evaporation happens faster and the cooling effect is stronger. When the air already holds a lot of moisture, there's less room for additional evaporation, and the temperature drop shrinks significantly. If you live in a climate where summer humidity regularly stays above 60%, this setup delivers a noticeably smaller temperature drop. It still cools through airflow and surface contact, but the evaporative mechanism is less powerful. In those climates, this is a supplemental strategy, not a full replacement. In dry climates, the American Southwest, the Great Plains, high altitude regions, this is not supplemental. It is genuinely effective cooling for a fraction of the energy cost. The U.S. Department of Energy notes that home air conditioning accounts for roughly 12% of residential electricity use, costing tens of billions of dollars annually. That 12% is not going toward a technology that was invented for your comfort. It's going toward a compressor cycle that replaced a bucket of water and a wet cloth that worked for 4,500 years. Let's run the final numbers. The U.S. air conditioning market was valued at $25 billion in 2025. Home AC accounts for roughly 12% of residential electricity use nationally. The average American household with central AC spends $30 to $85 per month in electricity just on cooling during summer months, on top of the $300 to $500 purchase price and the installation cost. A 5-gallon bucket, $3.50 at Home Depot. A pack of cotton cloths, $1 at Walmart. A bag of ice, $2 at any gas station. A box fan, if you don't already own one, $20. Total, $6 without a fan, $26 with one. One time, a $350 air conditioning unit that locks you into $85 a month in electricity, a service contract, and a replacement cycle every 8 to 12 years is not just a product. It's a subscription you didn't read the terms on. The ancient Egyptians figured this out in 2500 BC. They hung wet reeds in their windows, breeze passed through, and their homes became markedly cooler. That physics has not changed. What changed is that it got packaged inside a compressor and put on a monthly payment plan. You now know what a $25 billion industry is counting on you not knowing. If this saved you money this summer, hit the like button. It helps other people who are overpaying find this information. And if you want the next household markup exposed, one that costs you even more money every single year for an ingredient you can buy for $2, the video on your screen right now shows you exactly that. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.